everybody will always tell you the cliche is nobody ever got on their deathbed and regretted spending more time at work. I don't actually think that's true.
Welcome to the podcast where we try to inspire better work performance. Thanks for listening.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today on Management Muse. I'm your host, Cindy Baldi.
Yellow.
That is Jeffrey Tumlin.
Yellow.
In the other chair.
Yellow.
And today we are going to talk about the unappreciated social support we get from being parts of organizations.
Right. Why work actually makes us feel better, which I don't know that people think about this a lot.
Well, because work has that connotation to it that it's work. And I mean,
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
But like how many people have their partners, their friendships?
Yep. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you spend 8 hours a day at work. These are the people you see most for most people. This episode is sponsored by On Demand Leadership. Take your organization to the next level and we'll help you get your people there. And if there's something that you'd be interested in us covering, just leave a note down in the comments.
Yeah. Yeah. We backed into this topic when we were asked many years ago to, it was actually during the height of COVID, we were asked to do a session on loneliness, which we didn't know anything about. It's not directly in my academic line and it's not in yours either. Mm-mm. And so, like we do sometimes, this was a client we've had for a very long time and they asked for help. And so we wanted to help, but it basically took us to the research to try to figure out what's the science say about loneliness. And one of the interesting findings was, I think there are two that are not well known at all. And the number one is that the people most likely to be lonely are young people, not old people. And roughly from the ages of 17 or so to 22, 23. The reason for that is that's the time when we're most sensitive to being socially isolated, which to try to simplify, and I think it makes sense. You got to think in terms of evolution, but it made sense for us it conferred a survival advantage to be very sensitive to, am I fitting into my old tribe? Can I make a connection in this new tribe at about those ages for thousands and thousands and thousands of years? And loneliness is just it's the mechanism whereby our body tells us we're not actually as close as we need to be to our social group. That's what loneliness is. It's a marker of social isolation. So the first thing that was unusual in this finding was that it was actually young people report loneliness to a much greater degree than any other age range.
I can kind of see that though. Like, those are first transitions, right?
Sure.
And so you don't even know how to do them very well. And once you do them a couple of times, you figure out how to build those communities.
Yeah. That period of time from 17-ish to 22, 23, yes, we happen to report our greatest loneliness, but that's because we're the most sensitive to social isolation at that point. And it's also when we tend to experience some of our most high velocity emotions. And so it shows up later in the literature when you look at people's memories. Most people's memories.
I can remember all the songs from that age group. I can't
remember. That's right.
Anything.
That's right.
From even the songs I really love at present. The brain is just like not going in.
Yeah, most people's memories looking back over their life have two camel humps of most of their memories. The first big camel hump happens at this age when all these things are happening, but it's not only that, it's that we're more emotionally sensitive and also more attuned to how much we're fitting in, and are we, again, the social isolation. That's where the loneliness came from. And then the second camel hump happens after 65, and they think the reason is because people just have more time to do stuff that bring more novelty, brings more enjoyment. They're able to spend more relaxed time with their family and so forth.
Well, that, and it's also another big transition, right? Like that 65 tends to be the age where
Yeah.
people are losing their social support because they're coming out of work, to the extent that people
Yeah.
are retiring.
Yeah, and that's the second thing. So the two things that surprised me from the loneliness literature was, number one, that young people are actually report more loneliness than older people, and then number two is that unemployed people are one of the most vulnerable groups to loneliness. And the reason for that is because of the enormous social support benefit that work confers. It's a whole other set of friends, basically, and people, I think many people underestimate, and since this is a podcast for managers, that's why we're having this discussion. Don't underestimate how important it is to actually have these connections at work. Work creates a kind of purpose for a lot of people. And look, I know there's people out there, they hate their job. I get that. But if you hate your job, I'm sorry. If you hate your job and you hate the people you work with, quit. Like that's
Well, get on the market,
get on the
interview
market
for a job,
Get on the market
and do what
Yeah.
you need to do to, I mean, obviously people
Yeah.
need a paycheck. So that's not, the advice isn't to just quit, but like start that process of being able to land somewhere
sure.
else
Yeah,
where
start
at least you have a
exploring your
shot
alternatives.
at being
Yeah.
happy.
Start exploring your alternatives, because the most people generate relationships and of significance and that have meaning at work. And we see another angle of this a lot in the people we coach, because a percentage of the people that we're coaching are toward the latter phases, the ending phases of their career.
Because we tend to,
we get a lot of senior people.
Yeah, we get a lot of like not just senior in terms of age, but senior in terms of the organization. We do a lot of executive coaching, and so it tends to be older people.
Yeah. Yeah. Work does not have to be your purpose. Absolutely, it does not.
Yeah, we know people, like I talk about the lady who worked for us for my family, and I mean, she was a fantastic employee, but her purpose was raising her 5 kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Work doesn't have to be a purpose. For many people, it is. And especially for the kinds of people probably listening to this podcast who are managers, these jobs aren't without the problems. But as I forget the guy who wrote The Happiness Antidote, Oliver Berkman says, the problems are the job. Like, that's why we have managers. The problems are the job. Mm-hmm. And that's why we need leaders and managers. But
so the next time somebody comes to you about a problem they're having, just remember the problem is the job.
Yeah, that's like, and again, I didn't say that. Oliver Berkman said that in, I can't remember if it's The Happiness Antidote or the Time Management for Mortals. But I love that quote because it's exactly right.
It's kind of like what you say, like you'll always have a job because people always will screw up communication.
Yes, I think that's very true. And so I think that our recommendation to managers would be, don't underappreciate how important the relationships are that people have at work and that people are forming.
They are a facilitator where they're like, they have the opportunity to bring people together, figure out what motivates and bring people together for the opportunities of like forming closer bonds. We've talked about this before. Obviously, shared goals is one of the important ways. Feeling like you're moving in the same direction towards something important can make people feel like they're on a team, especially if there's some competition external to the organization. Not so great when the competition is inside the organization. But also, like, we've talked to some people who manage, I would say, a group of people who tend to be stereotypically oddballs and found ways to do, like, just basically embraced it and found ways to do activities that those oddballs all liked, or at least they were all open to.
Yeah.
And so like you have to be
All right.
careful because like that can be mandatory fun.
Yeah.
But you can kind of get a sense for whether or not it's mandatory fun by the fact that they're
Yeah.
bringing their game. Like they're
Yeah.
bringing energy and excitement and talk about it. And so like, you're on to something.
Yeah. And again, our disclaimer, we do not recommend games. We recommend work.
Right. And you can do the work with the shared goals and like some like a competitive type thing that's external, like maybe you're competing for some award external to the organization, or at least you have a goal that you're moving towards as a group where there's interdependence.
Right. Yeah.
That's typically what we deal with.
Yes.
But every once in a while, there's also this element, like the manager does create an environment to open up opportunities for these other things. And sometimes that's buying pizza. I know pizza gets slammed for
breakfast
this.
Tacos.
Whatever. But like you're convening
ice cream in the summer.
Food. Yeah. You convene people around food. So it's ice cream in the summer, a little rough because people take their ice cream and go elsewhere. Like something where they sit together as a group.
Yeah, I tell you a story. I got a good
conversation.
Story about that.
I mean, it's like the family meals.
Yeah, and that stuff's not unimportant. It's just so that we're clear. The most important thing you can do as a manager is help your people do their job.
Yes.
Work, solve problems, remove obstacles. And depending on how senior you are, you may have a hand in setting the strategic direction. And after that, the breakfast tacos, the games, the retreats.
But sometimes you have to, depending on what you're doing. And so you got to look. Like depending on what your department is doing and the interdependence of the people in it, sometimes you need to help them actually have bonds.
Yeah, sure.
And the easiest way to do that is some work lunch. Again, you're giving them a shared experience.
Yeah.
You're giving them something to eat, which makes people happy. And then you're doing work towards a goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell you a story about that. I went to a farewell recently, and it was for a senior person who was moving on to another job. And the company, they had drinks, they had hors d'oeuvres, and they paid a mobile barista. And I know this may sound a little weird, but it always shocks me how much people love free high-end coffee. And the person leaving had her two, one was college, one was high school kid. And I mean, that's a very tough audience, right? A high school kid and a college kid. And I was there when they rolled in and they saw, and there was a line. I guess there was maybe 70 people at this thing. And there was a line 20 deep to get the cappuccino, get the espresso, the fancy coffee. And the kids came in and they saw this and they turned to their mom and they're like, the company got you a barista for your farewell? And she was like, well, yeah, and they were like, whoa. And it was like just another one of those moments where it's not in any of the science. We spent all our time studying all this stuff. And every now and then it's doing that novel signal of, you know what? We love you so much that we're hiring a tatted up barista to bring their mobile machine. And it cost, in the grand scheme of things, this is it's an organization that makes plenty of money. It costs what? $400, $500? But that person going out.
70 people might be more than that, but yeah.
Yeah. But there's that person's two kids, and that's all the kids she has. And she's poured a ton of her time into the place that she's leaving and those kids. But the two sides often don't know each other. And the kids, I know this seems nuts, but a large part of the kids realizing their mom was a big deal was a $500 barista.
Yeah.
And 70 people at a farewell. And that everybody will always tell you the cliche is you'll never regret spending more time at work. Nobody ever got on their deathbed and regretted spending more time at work. I don't actually think that's true. I think there are people I know as they've gone on their deathbed and they regret that they left work early. Meaning, like, I shouldn't have quit when I did. I shouldn't have retired. I should have gone to halftime. I should have stayed a professor. I shouldn't have taken the early out. Yeah. And work gets a bad rap. Some of it well deserved. But think about where most people, Lord willing, they actually like the people they work with. And I'll go further and say, hopefully many of the people listening to this podcast have one or two people they'd actually call friends at work. And that is a gigantic source of social support that's completely underrated. And you think that you're going to retire and spend all this time with your kids. And guess what?
Your kids have lives. We were just talking to somebody about their grandmother. And he's like, she's just lost her spouse. And, she is saying, like, I'm ready to die, which my grandmother did the same thing. And it's a little off-putting to the younger people because you're like, hello, I'm here.
Yeah, sure.
But the fact is that, like, they're not part of your everyday life as designed. Your children are supposed to grow up, leave.
Yeah, sure.
Your grandkids are only supposed to visit, on the grand scheme of things. That's the general way.
Yeah.
But your work people,
you
see them every day. And so they they really are a significant loss when you step out of it.
There's a lot of research about what's called social isolates. And that's just a jargony scientific name for people who don't have a reciprocal relationship where they feel I love this person and this person loves me back.
And there are people who feel that way.
Die faster than people who drink, smoke, and do drugs. So it's like higher mortality than almost everything bad you could do for yourself. And go back to this idea about typically it's somebody who's been married a long time or with a partner a long time, and that person dies. And then the other person doesn't want to live anymore. So they're already older. A lot of their other peers and siblings may have already died.
And the daily relationships aren't there.
Right.
A lot
they're
of
not
time they
working
stepped out of
anymore.
work. Yeah,
right. And so it's weird because if you're a grandkid, you're like, well, wait, what about all of us? There's 5 or 6 grandkids. But to that person, they may still feel alone. They may feel like they're socially isolated. I have a buddy whose mom is a Walmart greeter. Doesn't need the money, is almost 80-something.
We're in Ubers all the time.
Yep.
With people who are retired. And actually, I mean, like we were talking to one dude, and he's got a house in Texas and a house in San Diego, and he's letting his kids pay virtually nothing.
Yeah,
true story. And we're sitting there and we're like, well, I mean, like the dude clearly has money. He's not
driving
just saying,
an Uber. And he knows because we know San Diego.
Right.
He's talking about like the inside baseball.
Right.
And
he
knows
his kids are paying for the electricity and that's it.
Yeah.
And like that's a dude. I think he was driving. And by the way, we also had a tour guide who he drove his wife crazy when he retired.
Oh,
so
that's
he's
true.
80 years old and
80-something.
This dude, PhD, worked for the UN, like
all over the world.
Amazing. The guy's mind was amazing.
Amazing guy.
Obviously did really well for himself in life. And he's a tour guide
making
because he was
$150 a day.
His wife crazy.
Yep.
Because he needed social interaction.
Yep.
And so that's why he was a tour guide.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, like they're out there. We see this a lot.
Yeah. I think about my Uncle Calvin, who, when he retired, basically.
Hi, Uncle Calvin.
Hi, Uncle Calvin.
Hi, Aunt Bev.
Annie Bev. And he ended up like driving a school bus because he needed that energy.
He's got high energy. He's like Geoff.
And
he might
social
even be
needs.
higher energy than you.
Yeah, and social needs. But people, it's not just highly extroverted people who certainly you can see how they would benefit from getting that stimulation. But a lot of people everybody benefits from that
There's an
support
element-
network.
Yeah, there's an element that you're seen.
Sure.
And when you retire or lose your job unexpectedly, and that's like your social support, which it is for a lot of people, like you now,
Yeah.
it's hard to feel seen.
We're taking a very simple approach, and that we're saying something non-controversial. Social support matters. Feeling like you're not alone, feeling like there's people who care about you, feeling like there's people who, when you're dragging a little, will help pick you up.
Yeah, I think the only thing that we're saying that's different is I don't think most people consider work
Nope.
to be part of that social
right.
network.
People buy into the cliche that they will never regret spending more time at work when they're on their deathbed. And we do not believe that's true.
Yeah, they'll never regret not spending more time at work. That's the cliche.
Yeah. You'll never wish you spent more time at work. It's like everybody's heard that. You'll never be, you won't look back and wish you'd spent more time at work. Well, just think of all of the people who, because of a layoff or something, work ended too soon for them.
Yeah, we can think of those people
Yeah,
too.
but it's much more than that. It's also this pernicious, negative, it's this bad conventional wisdom of there's work and then there's home.
Well, it's that the goal is retirement, but unless like your retirement is really defined and has a purpose and is going to lead you to social interaction.
Yeah.
If you don't have that plan,
yeah,
you need to rethink your retirement.
Yeah. There's research on what it takes to have a good life suggests 2, possibly 3 things. The first is, as Cindi just mentioned, purpose. The second is relationships. And the third is, this one's relatively new in the science, is novelty and something interesting. And so relationships, purpose, and something interesting. And when you take work out, you run the risk of losing a third of your relationships. I'm just making that number up.
Yeah, it totally depends on.
But of your day-to-day relationships, you probably lose 80% of your day-to-day.
It may even be higher.
Right.
Than
And in theory, 150 people, and at work, you're working with 6. But when you stop working, those 150, they live in Cleveland, they live in Bermuda. I mean, they live all over.
Right.
And so you're not seeing all those other people, but those 8 that you saw every day, now they're gone because you're not working. So your relationships take a hit. As you've been describing, your purpose may take a hit. And then, as the new research suggests, novelty, excitement, interesting, things that are can you not work and have a meaningful, good life? Yes, my mom did it. She retired at age, what? I don't know, 50?
I don't know.
Whatever. She had her own business. My dad, they were kind of partners in it. And then eventually my dad just took it over when he left corporate work. But my mom, probably for 20 to 30 years, has not had a paying job. Now, again, she did her time. She built her company.
And she also did things in retirement.
Yeah. And then they were, smart with their funds. So this, my mom wasn't a burden, but she immediately threw herself into the schools. And then she threw herself into a community group that did this huge project on the outdoors, and then book club and a community garden. And so, you look at my mom, she hasn't worked for pay in 25 years, but does she have good, strong, solid relationships? Yes. Does she have, and not only with family, but with the people she's engaged in some of these activities with, non-paid activities? Does she have something that's has a sense of purpose? Yes. She's thrown herself into the anti-human trafficking, into the beautification of the area, into the book club, into the garden, all this stuff. And so everybody's mission is to, the best of your ability, try to think your way through transitions so that you're not falling through the floor, so to speak, that there's a buffer. One of the reasons why there was a lot of veterans having negative mental health outcomes is that they were one day surrounded by, at work, this tight band of brothers and sisters. And then the next day, they're civilians, which I've been military and then I was civilian and I couldn't wait to be a civilian. But then I was non-combat. I had a period of months where I sat around in my boxer shorts wondering, have I made the greatest mistake of my life? In large part because it was hard for me to regenerate a purpose, and underappreciated, I left my entire day-to-day support network behind. Did I have family? Yes. Did I have friends? Yes. I had all that.
But they weren't in part of your daily life at that point.
That's right. Yeah. And everybody in my daily life was brand new. And we were just forming those bonds. And yes, I did go on to make some friends. There was a period of time where I dramatically underestimated the cost of leaving that purpose and those people behind, even as I couldn't wait to get out. And so to tie it to the veterans, I mean, some of the reasons that some veterans have had trouble is that as they make that transition, they do a version of what I did, but with higher mental stakes because they have been in combat. I was never in combat. They have maybe seen some things that are rattled around their head. I didn't have any of that.
Yeah, and you can actually, in that respect, I think they would probably feel even like you didn't have those things. And so you were able to form new relationships with people who, by and large, I mean, you could fill the gap between civilian and military. But like, if you've got things that you've seen that this other group shares, like that's an unusual thing to experience in most people's lives.
Yeah,
right?
Sure. Right.
And so you have not only a social support around you, but you share something that's very unusual.
Yeah.
And so then the new network, you can try and you can make friends, but they're never going to quite understand you the same way.
Yeah, completely agree. It's one of the reasons why it has been challenging historically to get veterans to talk about their experiences unless they're with other veterans, because they feel so. Some of the best trained counselors in the world have trouble sometimes getting through because there's that sense of and it's not just military. I mean, it's police, first responder. Like, how would you know, that kind of thing?
Any of the people who see things that normal, every day you don't. Like even hospital workers, I would say, if they step out of the hospital and get a different job, like different location, and like you have to leave those friends behind, those relationships behind. I won't even say friends, like just relationships. Like people don't know what that's like.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little side thing, this little side theory I've got working. And so I'm old enough, I'm 54, and I was in the Army in the 90s when pre 9/11, there wasn't, nobody ever said the words that I understood PTSD. We didn't talk about it. I mean, just because it wasn't really known as a thing, right?
It wasn't labeled.
Yeah.
It existed. It wasn't labeled.
Yeah, and it wasn't something thought to be widely
yes, it was downplayed. Yeah.
Now it was a peacetime Army, and so you could see why it might. Anyway, I lived long enough to see the Army take PTSD very seriously, as it should, and the military more generally. And then fast forward the clock now, it's in the 2000s, and we started working with fire departments, and we saw the fire departments begin to realize, in Texas, the fire departments are the first people on the scene at accidents.
They see some hard stuff.
Yeah. And so basically they began to realize, oh, wow, it's very hard to do this job without being exposed to the kinds of things that can cause PTSD. And they became more serious about firefighters who had PTSD and how to treat it and how to give them the support they need. And I think we're going to see that now. We work 10 more years later, we work in hospitals a lot. I think we're going to see the same thing in ICUs.
Oh, for sure.
And
I think we already have.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, where they take it more seriously. I mean, where you basically acknowledge on up front that this job, you have to have resources because it doesn't guarantee you're going to get PTSD. Most people get over most things. That's George Bonanno's research on resilience, and without it being traumatic. But if you are continuously exposed, your numbers may run out, and there may be things that begin to rattle around in your head. And so, those type of jobs are unique. What's not unique is that in a lot of the work that people do, they draw a lot of their strength from the people they're working with. And I think that your point is a good one. The tendency is to glamorize retirement. We're all for people retiring when they've had their run, met their number, their time is up, whatever you want to call it, however you want to say it. But you're looking for, in what comes next, where's the meaning? Where's the novelty and
Where's the
curiosity
daily
and
interaction?
interest? Yes. And this third piece, underappreciated. Who are the daily people I'm going to rub shoulders with who give a crap about me and I give a crap about them? That's it. That's the highlights. That's why I wanted to talk about this.
All right. Well, I think we're good.
Thanks to Sarah Morsi, our producer, Rebecca Henley, our right-hand woman, and Jack Bream, helping us bring Management Muse.
To all of you.
Yep. Till we see you again.
Thanks for joining.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Management Muse. We are a podcast / YouTube channel that we hope is entertaining and educational. If you are on YouTube, we would appreciate you subscribing and maybe leaving a comment and a like. If you are on any of the podcasts listening to this, we would appreciate stars, following, comments, all the good stuff. We want to say thank you to Sarah and Rebecca. And then just as a last minute reminder, we also want to mention that we are management and communication professionals working in the field, but also have degrees that back us in science. All that being said, we are talking in generalities on this podcast. We do not actually know your particular situation. So proceed with common sense and maybe a little bit of experimentation on your end. And we hope that you make the world a more beautiful place by making work a more enjoyable place. See you next time on Management Muse.